Something not as long as a video. Welcome to Drawing with Dewey live. That sounds awful. What is oh, I have another window open. I'm not good at this, just throwing that out there. Getting ready to get started with a new live drawing video. Every few months, I say I'm going to try to do more of these, and then every few months, I forget to do more of these. But I'm going to try to do more of these. So yeah, this is Drawing with D Live. I'm going to be working on a new Finding the comic that's actually going to be dropping Wednesday for members of my Patreon. If you can hear me, let me know because I've had technical issues in the past. So if you can hear this, I see Super D is watching. Yay! D. What do we got here? Yay! If you can hear me, let me know. Just drop a message and say, yes, I can hear you. Otherwise, I will end up talking for like an hour before I realize that no one can hear me. Hmm. Gonna try something really quick here. Hello? Hi. If you can hear me, let me know. I, in order to make sure I can see comments on Facebook, I have my phone up with the video. So I turned the volume up to ensure that I could, in fact, be heard. And thank you, Super D. All the D's are here. This is an all D show. So let's see. I'll switch over my screen here to my working space. Share. Okay. Huzzah. Okay, so I'm going to be working in Clip Studio. And normally I actually work on my iPad at home. It's got a little bit of a better interface in terms of the pen's smoothness. So it's a lot easier for me to work on it. But I can't stream from that for some reason. I've tried. It doesn't work. I'll get it sussed out. But in the meantime, I'll be working on my desktop here at my office with my very old, very simple Wacom little pad here. It's like 4x5. It's tiny. I've been working on tiny little pads forever. So, you know, it doesn't prep me for being good at murals, but it does prep me for being good at sketch cards. And as always, this video is unofficially brought to you by my obsession with Dr. Pepper Zero. Dr. Pepper Zero. This will make me burp. So anyway, I am working on a strip. Currently, there's a storyline running that's actually set a couple of years ago. When I hurt my arm, I was doing some yard work and I was like really overdoing it with the pruning. And something just popped right here. I've been to the doctors, all kinds of stuff. It still bothers me a little bit, but like for a while, this was as long as I could lift my arm and I couldn't sleep on my left side and I had to prop myself up with pillows and all kinds of crazy stuff. Much of which will feature in strips over the next couple of days. But I realized there was a key beat missing that I really wanted to cover. And I'm not going to give it away here. So I took all the, you'll note there's no dialogue or even the title. I took all that off the strip. So that way I don't spoil anything for anybody. But yeah, so as I will say on these videos, whenever I do them, if you have any questions at all whatsoever, do not hesitate to ask. I can see questions if they pop up here on the side of my screen or in Facebook. So if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, just type a message if you've got any questions. I'll be taking my glasses off because I don't actually need them for up close stuff. It's more of a far away when I'm driving and talking to people more than 3 feet from my face. It just looks so weird to me without it. I'm so used to them being kind of like a part of my face. See, we got Joseph watching on Facebook, Super D here on watching the YouTube stream. Again, this is super impromptu. One of these days, I will nail it down and start saying, I'm going to do these things at this exact time and do them and every week, but I'm terrible at that. So anyway, as always, I've got my template built up. I usually build my templates in Photoshop. It has all makes it easier for me to do my lettering where I can put little outlines around everything easier. I don't like the text tools in Clip Studio. I can't change the color of things like the logos as easily. And now that I'm working in color, that's more important. So what I do is I blow my nose. Ah, hand pink waving. Hello! Got some more folks in here. Hello. So, I have this template built. I have a few of them for my regular strips, either the long versions or the 4 panels. This is my 6 panel template with a title panel. The title panel is just kind of a wink nod to the throwaway panels and the title panels on a Sunday comic strip in the newspapers. Emilio's watching. Hello, Amelia. Emilio. Okay, I don't have my glasses on. I don't need it to draw, but apparently I need it to read the teeny tiny text on my phone. I promised I'd burp, and I'm burping. I always draw my sketch layer in blue. It's kind of a throwback to when I used to work in blue pencil all the time. Whenever I'm working on paper, it's always blue pencil. Like I've got a little art supply box here that I use for conventions and whatnot and commissions. So I still have a whole bunch of these Staedtler blue pencils, and I love them because you don't have to erase. And if somebody buys art for me, they're getting the blue pencils. I'm not erasing it. Okay, we've got some questions. So I'll get into that first question in just a second as soon as I'm finished with the base setup. So I've got my template here. In order to keep myself from drawing on the wrong layer, I'm going to lock my sketch layer, lock my logo layer, so that only my line art layer is visible. Now I have another layer that I don't need yet, which is my color palette. So here's me, Heidi, Poe, Maisie and Lucy, and random. So all the standard characters, anything else can kind of go in. My line art layer, I've got see, a time lapse is recording so that for my Patreon people, they'll be able to watch the time lapse of this. I use a brush called Lando Calbrushиan that I got from the Friendin brush set. I love it. It's got a great, thin, thick, really juicy Jeff Smith kind of line to it that I adore. I'm going to set it to, let's see, usually around 20. 16 to 20 is about my range of point size. I'm gonna go with 20 because I'm gonna start on the big close up, make sure it's set to black, stabilization to about 10, give or take, especially since I'm not working on my iPad. And as I get started, I've got a question here from Super D of the amazing comic, um, yeah, Rosebuds. Derp. Just bought the book. It's awesome. Tell us about your love of comic strips, maybe your favorite part of it, your top comic strips. I have, I mean, like a lot of kids, especially those of us growing up in the 80s and 70s, which I did. I grew up with a lot of comic strips. We had I was on Long Island, so we had Newsday and the Daily News, and we'd get both papers, especially on Sundays, because like the Daily like Newsday had some comic strips that the Daily News didn't have. So I was always like, we have to get both papers. Um, and I to this day could not tell you which were the ones that I was like, I had to get one paper for one or the other. I'm gonna make this a little bigger because it's a close up. So, yeah, I read a lot of like growing up. The papers in the paper, that's where I would read things like the classic ones like Dick Tracy and stuff like that. And Little Orphan Annie, and a lot of the legacy strips that, the strips that were already being drawn by their second or third artist by the time I discovered them. The strips that really, though, the ones that grabbed me and made me really want to do this was Jim Davis's Garfield, Charles Schultz's Peanuts, and then as I got a little older, I'd be like Berkeley Bread that's Bloom County, and then Calvin and Hobbes. Calvin and Hobbes is an interesting one because it wasn't formulative for me. It was very much something I discovered later on. I was still reading comics and comic strips, but I would get them from books. I wasn't going to the paper as often once I got into like say junior high. So I wasn't reading them from the newspapers, and as a result, I didn't really get into Calvin and Hobbes right away. It wasn't until went to like a Barnes and Noble and found the or like one of those big treasury editions, like the authoritative Calvin and Hobbes, and they had all those cool ones. Um, and I'd get into those, and that's how I kind of got into Calvin and Hobbes. It was a little bit later, and then other strips like Pogo, I didn't discover until I went after high school. I went for 1 year to the Joe Kubert School in New Jersey, and our humor teacher was a cartoonist named Erwin Hasen, who was best known for the comic strip Dondi. And he turned me on to a lot of great stuff, but specifically Pogo. The local Dover library in New Jersey had some Pogo books, and I just was like sucked into that. Not so much the political side of it, but boy, the cartooning and some of the wackier like adventures, like the Australia adventure and all that stuff, the Pandemonium storylines, that stuff really grabbed me. The political stuff really lost me. I was like, I don't know what I'm looking at here. I was blissfully unaware of who half the people they were, caricaturing at the time were. I was like, something's happening in this. I don't know quite what. It took me a while to figure it out, but I'm glad I did because it's a gorgeous, gorgeous strip, and it's a you know high watermark for that totally. Since those early, there was a few strips that I really, really liked as a kid. I liked Kathy. I liked Marvin, um, Heathcliff, and Garfield. I loved them both. And then moving on as I got a little older and started discovering other, stuff, it was like Bloom County was definitely a mind changer for me because it took me out of a certain style of comic that I was very much like obsessed with as a little kid and got me into a different style of storytelling entirely. And I still lean heavily on that influence, I think. Um, Going over the lines a little more than I normally do, but again, I'm not used to working on my desktop on the strip anymore. So it's a little slower than normal. Now, right now, I'm working real basic. Oop, wrong button. What I do is when I do these, because I'm coloring now, you'll note there's no rendering here, no background doodles, anything yet. The rendering that I like to do, the little extra lines on the hair, this is gonna have some sweat on it and some burst lines behind me. I'm gonna do all of those on a separate layer, specifically because makes it so much easier if I just do clean line inking. Oh, that's too big for the middle panel. Go to 17. If I do nice clean lines for the panels at this stage, it's so much easier to just do base coloring. So little details that it actually takes a little bit of doing for me because I'm so used to doing this a certain way, and this technique saves me time in the coloring, but like my brain wants to noodle and add the rendering. And I'm trying to avoid doing as much of that as possible at this stage because it makes it so much harder to just do fill coloring later on. If it's, if this has got a bunch of cross hatching on it, it's going to want to try to fill in all those tiny little dots. So trying to keep it real simple for the base inking. I keep my pencils, my roughs, really loose, so that the majority of the actual drawing is something that happens in the ink stage or the digital rendering stage. It's not technically inking, obviously. There's no real ink. Um, to continue answering Super D's question about the love of comic strips, and I think there's something to be said for my love of the medium in particular, because no matter what else I work on, 'cause I've got comic books, I've done graphic novels, I have all kinds of stuff. I'm writing actual novels. No matter what I work on, I kind of always come back to strips. It's just I have been a massive fan of the medium of comic strips, and it's just something I thoroughly enjoy. I love kind of that in and out structure of, you know, 3 or 4 panels, 5 or 6 panels, however many it takes to just tell kind of, you know, a straightforward joke, get in, get out. You've got to get all your characterization in just a couple of panels and make something that even if somebody's never read it before, if that's the first time they're picking up that strip, the base concept should still be understandable. And even with something, something like Finding D, obviously, if you don't know, for example, that I'm transgender in the strip, that might not be relevant in every single strip that you read. That might not come up as a detail. That's just, nature of the beast. But the general, if the joke is about that, then yeah, it's going to get mentioned. I do like that. It's something I remember Stan Lee notoriously said about comic. Every comic is someone's first. And I think that applies to comic strips as well. That, you know, there's someone who's, with social media and really anything, chances are every single comic that you do, every single comic strip, whatever, is probably someone's first time ever seeing your work. There's a decent chance that every single day that I post a strip, it's one of the reasons why, even though the strip only runs, right now it's been twice a week the last few weeks. Whenever I have lengthy stories, I tend to make the strip twice a week because it's a lot easier to tell multi-level stories if I'm doing 2 strips a week. But even on days when I don't have a new strip, I always have a rerun running. And because they're new to someone, especially with the way the algorithms run, that stuff is constantly new to somebody out there. Um, and so I try to make sure that it's always something kind of cool for people and that they're getting what feels like a complete story. This is going to be a follow up to a strip that's going to run on next Wednesday on my regular site and this Wednesday on Patreon. Now, because I'm slightly in the foreground of Heidi, I am going to come here and kind of bump up my outline a little bit more of a contour outline. I don't always do this as well as I should, and I really need to spend the extra time punching in those juicier contour outlines. Really makes the art pop and sing, in my opinion. And I'm not as diligent about doing it as I should be. And I think that especially now, ever since I moved to color, I've been slacking a little bit on my contour work, but I'm gonna try to nip that in the bud before it gets too much further along. And that's just an old inking, old comic inking technique that, the thicker the outline is, the more it to your eye reads as closer to the camera. It offers a little bit of extra separation and depth. Gonna add a little bit more of a stroke around this arm here. I'm not gonna do it artificially because that just looks stiff and awkward. But that little bit of extra thickness to certain elements, like now the arm looks like it's coming a little bit further forward than the pillow it's resting on. At least I think. And again, background super minimal right now, line work super minimal. I'm going to go in and give them some extra rendering in a minute, but that's more of a final stage thing. Heidi has glasses now. I sometimes draw them in the strip. I sometimes don't draw them in the strip. It really depends. She frequently doesn't wear them when we're at home. So sometimes the strip won't feature them unless we're out someplace. But for this one, I penciled them. Pardon me. I promise Dr. Pepper makes me burp, and I did not lie. I love it though. It just doesn't love me. Um, I felt like drawing her glasses for this. Her hair's changed, and there's a story coming up that I'm working on. It's going to be one of the longer storylines. Um, Heidi is trying to grow her hair out a little bit, and it's thinned over the years, partly due to like when she put dreads in and stuff like that. And so she's trying to let it grow out, and she's become somewhat obsessed with wigs. And she's been wearing a lot of. She's got really nice ones, and she styles them really well, and kind of gave me permission to mention it in the strip because there's some funny jokes that amongst ourselves talking about them that we want to play with. And she's like, "Oh my God, that's funny. You have to put that in the strip." I'm like, "Okay, if you're okay with me talking about it." She's like, "Oh yeah, yeah." That's the thing with stuff like that with Heidi. We're real people. This is our real lives that I'm talking about quite frequently. Like this arm injury that this strip is a part of that storyline that did happen. And it wasn't funny at the time. It hurt like an MFer. When that muscle popped in my arm, I ran upstairs fully dressed and jumped in the shower and poured hot water on it and was just crying. It's like, it's not funny, but part of what this comic strip is about is always been about finding the humor in situations that aren't inherently funny. And initially, that was a lot of the stuff having to do with my being transgender. But now it's just about our everyday lives. So if anyone has any additional questions or anything they want to ask, don't hesitate to do so. I can see the question. I can see the screen in the YouTube or Facebook. So if you're watching in Facebook or YouTube and you have a question, just drop there into the messages or into the chat, and I will take a look at it and I can put it up there on the screen, answer it for all to see. Don't be shy, please. Gives me stuff to talk about. Otherwise, I'm just going to ramble here and then eventually kind of mess that line up, clean it up a little bit. So that's like the basic top two panels there. Normally, I do this. I'll try to do all the straight inking all at once, but I just want to show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to create a separate layer here for rendering. Wait, I'm going to do glasses first. I do my glasses on a separate layer. I know it's complex, but I always try to give the glasses a very thin, dead line. I'll do a quick outline on their own. Now they're on their own layer. Then I will bring, I will make my pen white, and I kind of I'll drop the background so you can really see it. I'll kind of go in there and put this little tiny white outline on the inside corners of the glasses. Not the whole thing, just a little bit, little tiny little rim on the inside. And in black and white, this serves to really help separate them. Like any place where there's an overlapping area, like where the glasses go over. So, like in black and white, I think that makes it look like the glasses pop a little bit. In color, it does the same thing. So it almost looks like a little bit of a reflection. Um, and for this one, I gotta make my pen bigger because it's a slightly bigger panel. And whenever I'm drawing myself looking kind of like frightened or confused or panicky, I find that making the glasses a little kitty wampus on my face actually helps sell that quite well. Right up to that line. That way it really looks like a line of reflection. And it helps to separate the glasses themselves from my face. If I'm working on paper, I'll do this with like a white gel pen or something, and that works pretty well. So I've got glasses on a separate layer. Bing. So much easier to color this way too. And now I'm going to do a rendering layer. And in that case, what that comes down to is all the little needly little lines I like to do. Like in this case, I want myself sweating. This way I don't have to suss around all of these little beads of sweat with the color. It'll just fill in. I like to put some kind of render lines in my hair. Make it look a little shiny. By doing these on their own layer, I don't have to negotiate them with them at all in the coloring stage. They are completely oblivious to the color. The color is going to go right below them and not care at all about them, and it won't be a problem for me to work around them, which it usually is. Otherwise, I have to fill in all these tiny little gaps, and it becomes a huge pain in my patookus. Let's see, we got some folks watching here in Facebook, a couple people watching in YouTube. So yeah, again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Now there are tools in Clip Studio that can allow you to do things like bursts, but for the strip, like for covers and comic book art, I'll use those tools every now and again, like on a cover or something really big and fancy. But just for a tiny little panel like this, I prefer doing them by hand, and I do them very freehand, just loose and quick, just to give it a nice like shocked face on D here. Now for the again the rendering, certain things here like boob shadow, I always put a little bit of rendering to um, the collar of a t-shirt has all these little, I like to put these little nibby lines here. This just doing these on their own layer makes it so much easier to color. Give Heidi a little bit of rendering in her hair. Come over to me. The scrunchie, my scrunchies are actually, I color them purple in the strip. In reality, I usually wear black scrunchies. So in the line work, what I've been doing nowadays with the coloring is I kind of split the difference, and I'll color about half of it black and then leave just a little bit in purple up on the top, or whatever color shirt I'm wearing. 90% of the time it's a purple. It's kind of the branded version. Make this line a little thinner. Some hair lines in here for my ponytail. Some more rendering in here. And I do this for every panel where I'll go over it twice, once with the more simple, clean lines and one in another layer that's um, lighter like this. And it really is just all about making the process of coloring less of a pain to me, which I just don't like doing. Extra, I'm gonna have some little nerves, little anxiety lines around. Okay, so let's see where I got here. Sitting on a chair, so I'm going to give the chair a little bit of texture, a little feathering here, so there's some darkness around the back. A little bit of cross hatching here, or not cross hatching, just hatching on the pillow. Again, just like to give it a little bit more texture, a little bit more energy to it. Some feathering so that the pillow has a little bit of a texture of its own outside of my skin, hair, and all that jazz. The boob shadow. Some shadows on the chair. I really like this is a process for me doing these kinds of inks that is very, very, for lack of a better term, um, yeah, I find it very relaxing. It's the closest I ever get to like Zen meditation is when I'm doing my inking, my digital rendering, as it were. Usually I'm just kind of sitting on the chair. See now, like a little bit of that hatching makes the chair sit back a little bit further from me. And the hair gives it some tense. And then my favorite cheat of all, the void hatching. Now, this is something very much inspired by Berkeley Brothers Bloom County. He would do these. Now, his were kind of like in the corner, like these little sketches that he would just kind of trail off. Hiya, the tired Scott. Welcome to the show. Working on a new Finding D strip. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. I can see the screens and the messages, so I can reply as they come up. And I'm going to try to get. I mean, there's no time limit on this, but I'm going to try to get it done before I leave for the end of the day. It is 4:48 on my clock. Heidi gets off work at 6:30, and I go to pick her up. So, with any luck, I'll get this strip completely inked and colored before then, and that will be cool. I like to try to do whenever I can, like a full whatever I'm doing in a sitting. Oh, that's a great question. Show. So Super D asks, "What's your dream comic to work on?" I don't have one dream comic. I really don't. There's a lot of things like nothing would honestly make me happier than just making enough money off of my own comic to where that's the only thing I ever have to do, to be perfectly honest. Whatever that comic is. Right now it's Finding D. Finding D will run its course before too long. I'll work on something else. And, if that's the kind of thing that, where I'm paying my bills doing it, that makes me the happiest person. I love doing this little weird herringbone, almost like crisscrossy pattern in the sky. Just gives the background a little bit more texture and a sense of there being something there. Just something. Takes a little bit of time, but it's a lot of fun. Now there are comics that I would absolutely adore working on. As far as strips go, I would really love to try my hand at Popeye. I am I'm not like the biggest fan in the world by far. There's other folks out there that are much bigger fans than I am, but I've always been a fan of the character and the comics, and I've been loving the comics more and more. I've been kind of reading up on a lot of the older ones. The Bud Sagendorf stuff. I know it's not the most popular, but I really love the Bobby London stuff. That's really been speaking to me. I'd love to work on Popeye. I mean, I'd love to work on Dick Tracy again. That was an amazing experience. I got to work with Shelley Pledger for about 6 months. I was inking her every few days. Not every day, but, like, I was kinda helping her pinch hit doing some ghost inking, and that led to me having a nice 2-week stint as, a guest artist on it. So I got that was an amazing experience that I'd love to do again. There's a part of me that would love to get a shot at Garfield. I don't know that I would wanna do it in the sense where it's like I will say, while I think I'm pretty darn good at matching art styles, I would not want to feel compelled to have to hit model sheets on a daily basis. I would wanna be able to sorry, I've got a little butt pillow and it keeps sliding. I would wanna be able to put a little bit of my own spin on anything I worked on, with strips. With comic books, I'd love to work on the Turtles, on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's definite. I would adore working on the Turtles. I mean, I think ever since I was a little kid, I've wanted to draw Spider-Man, so that's kind of almost a given. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is the rendering and the glasses, see they're on their layer. I am going to lock them so I don't accidentally draw on them and then go to my line art layer again to work on these other panels. And again, I'm gonna just be doing the very base ink lines. But if I had to say any one thing is my dream comic, it would be getting paid to do my own thing. Um, right now, I'm making a little bit of money on Finding D, not a lot, not enough to pay the bills. The audience has been growing, and it's been a steady growth, but not significant enough for me to like quit my day job. I mean, if I could get to that kind of position with my own creations, that would make me, happiest girl in the world. Or all I'm doing is working on my creative ideas, my comics, my novels, whatever. Um, and I love doing strips. At the end of the day, that is my favorite medium. I do have a new strip that I've been working on with my friend Sabrina. We've been developing it now for a little over a year, and it's called Adventures in Dungeoneering, and it will be premiering in October. We're not going to give too much of it away right now, but it is a lot of fun. Um, just a little silhouette here. Drop the eye drop bucket. Lately, I've been doing a lot more of like young me in the strip. I kind of didn't do that for a while because it always kind of, for lack of a better term, was always slightly triggering to draw pre-transition me. Um, but I've gotten a lot more comfortable with it in the last couple of years. And sometimes it's just the nature of the beast. You need to draw yourself in these ways to tell these stories. A lot of the more important aspects of what makes Finding D what it is me telling these stories from my past. And to do that, I have to draw me as I was. Um, Younger versions, it's a lot easier because we're not exactly heavily gendered. You know, Again, going to keep the line work pretty basic here on this paper bag. So I don't want to have to work too hard around filling in the colors. 90% of my life, plastic bags have been a thing. They're just boring to draw unless you've got like 40 of them. Paper bags just sell the visual really, really well. No, that's the sketch line. Don't put those in yet. I'm bad about that. I will absolutely make my life more difficult if I'm not paying attention. Like I should have drawn milk on the rendering layer because now I'm going to have to work around those letters. If anyone else has any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Again, I can you cannot do a bag of groceries without a baguette sticking out. It's like cartoon law. If anyone has any questions, don't hesitate to ask. I can see the screens, and questions make this all far more interesting. Gives me something to talk about. I started working I actually started working digitally in the late 90s when I was working as a graphic designer in Orlando, and I had a computer and I had a Wacom tablet. And I would spend a couple of hours every night after work just sitting in the office. My boss would let me. I'd sit in the office, and I started with coloring. I would color comics that I was scanning in, which helped me get the hand-eye coordination so that I can do this and not be looking at my hand at all. Like my hand is way over there to the side. And that was something I couldn't do for a really long time. And it's something I know a lot of artists, even those who work digitally, have a hard time with. They need to have like that Cintiq or the iPad where they're looking directly at the screen. And I'm very, very used to at this point not seeing my hand as I'm drawing. Um, and I would work on that. So when I did my first webcomic, Dandy and Company, in 2001, that was completely digital. I did that from 2001 to 2018. Ultimately, I took a break from 2011 to 2014 to work on other projects. When I came back, I was doing it traditionally for a little while, for like about 2 years, like 14, 15, and 16. And then I went back digital again. Um, it's faster. It's so much more editable and adaptable, and it works for me. So I try not to fight that with the whole, the purist mentality of I need to be working traditionally. No one's really buying the originals, so it wasn't. That's a lot of extra work for the prospect that maybe in the future someone will want to buy your originals. That's ever the case. I can, do what what's his oh my goodness, I'm blanking on his name. Carl Barks, the Good Duck Artist, where he would go and do those, cool painted recreations of his covers and panels. It's like, "Oh, I'll make some money that way if I ever become that kind of a success." But I don't see that happening anytime soon. So it's a lot easier and faster for me and more adaptable. Like that one line went over. I can go in real easy without having to white out or any of that nonsense. Drives me nuts. I'm gonna make my pants a little shorter here. So yeah, I was doing working digitally on a tablet full time as early as 2001. Um, it's second nature to me at this point, and a lot of benefits and very, very few downsides for me anyway. To get a really nice smooth line like I'm doing here, yeah, can I do this with, pen and ink or a brush? Absolutely. It just takes so much longer for me, if I'm doing this with an actual brush on paper than to get the line I want. To get the line I want, like, okay, here, to get the nice smooth nose, for example, like here, I can go, there you go, I'm happy with that. With a brush, I'm like, and if it didn't come out just right, well, I'm stuck with it, or I got to start over. Here, there we go, nose. The Charlie Brown mouth. I don't know where the weird six-shaped ear came from. It's just something that I started doing when I was doing a comic strip called Marjorie of the Weirdlings, and I just liked it, and I just started adapting it to everything. Let's see. Have you ever used a non-PC tablet for drawing, such as an iPad? The tired Scott asks. All the time. 90% of the time. I have an iPad. It was kind of a trade I did a couple of years ago. My first one. I did some covers for somebody who was getting a new iPad and wanted some covers from me. And I did literally a trade for their old iPad in exchange for a couple of covers. And I love it. 90% of the time when I'm drawing, 95 or more percent of the time when I'm drawing, like full on inks, it's in my recliner in the living room watching cartoons or old episodes of Mythbusters on an iPad, and I love it. I am hooked on it. I'm faster on it. It's smoother to work. This is a bit more of a, like, if I was doing this on the iPad, I'd be much further along than I am right now. Let's see. I want at least one of these to be kind of looking up at the thought. Yeah, I love working on the iPad. I've had to get a new one since that first one kind of started going dead on me end of last year, and it's great. I love it. Right now, I'm working on iMac on my desktop, and works great. And I usually do a lot of my roughs in this, but like in Photoshop, but for like finished inks, yeah, the iPad is so smooth. And I can take it anywhere. I can go to the library, I can go to the coffee shop, all the cliches that you hear about. I love doing them. I love drawing wherever I can. Um, okay, so I'm going to do these one panel at a time so that it doesn't, become, because the rendering will not be as much fun if that's all you're seeing when I get done with it. So, glasses. Oh, outline one, kitty. White. Oh, and yeah, when the line wobbles and flies out like it just did, it does not happen near as much with the iPad because that pen, that really specialty one, the expensive one, those lines are just chef's kiss. Um, that's extra anxiety lines. Nope, wrong. See, I did the wrong layer. Line art, it's gonna lock right now. Glasses are gonna lock. I gotta get back into that habit. Now I'm on the rendering layer. It's a new technique for me to use the rendering layer. I have not been doing it that way for a long time because I wasn't coloring myself. So I would just do the line art all one layer, work just fine. Now that I'm coloring it myself, on the regular, which I hate doing, but it looks nice. And the color books sell a lot better than my black and white ones. So that's one of my bigger reasons why I'm going color. More than anything else is when I set up at a convention or something, the color books move much faster off the table than the black and white books. The people look at the black and white books and they just like, meh. You see the color ones and they're like, ooh. So I told myself, yeah, start coloring these yourself. Katie Rooston's been working with me for a few years now with Laguna Studios to color the book collections. Like we got volume 2 back here. Volume 3 is at the printer right now. Actually, it's volume 1. Volume 3 is at the printer right now. Will be coming back soon. That's the one that's got the 3D stories. A lot of fun, super exciting. Um, but yeah, she's not able to. She's got some other stuff going on. She won't be able to pick up from volumes 4. So after work, every now and again, you know, I will set up and just start coloring older strips just to kind of get book 4 caught up so that by by next year we'll be able to drop a book 4. Let's see. Again, I'm gonna do my little cross hatching, but I'm not gonna have it butt up against the thought balloon lines. I'm gonna give it a little bit of air and not put any of these hatchy lines inside the thought balloon. Just keep them as they are. Oh, cool. We're a little under an hour, and I got about 3 panels inked, so almost half done. Yay. Put some kind of hatchy rendering here on the paper bags. So they give them a little bit of texture and crinkle look to them. Again, oh, oops, I'm locked up for a sec there. Another thing I only do on the rendering, my fingernails. Filling in those tiny little holes in color is a major pain in my butt. Paraphrase the genie. It's not a pretty picture. Don't like doing it. Some texture here for the oranges. I also have some like custom brushes and brushes that I've purchased that have like old Zippo techniques and stuff like that that I will use on occasion for certain things. And I don't know if I'm going to use any of that here, but I like to do things like, okay, the bread here, give that a little bit of a texture and put some squiggly lines on here just so that it looks like the box has writing on it. Bananas. Got a little bit of hatching texture here on the underside of where stuff is bulging out of this bag, to really showcase that the bag is overstuffed. Hence, heavy. The body language should also help sell heavy. Some beads of sweat. Some of the noodlier hairlines. It's definitely not the kind of like style that would work well if I was doing this for say like a newspaper. I would definitely have to streamline my art significantly for that to read. Designs would have to change, all kinds of stuff. But oh, got a line here that needs to be closed because that's going to become a problem in the coloring. Haha. Off, rendering. Some nice wobble lines here. Show that it's a bit of a struggle for me to hold this. It's okay. There we go. I am very satisfied with that. One other thing. On the rendering layer, I am going to do, I'm going to pick a darker blue. Few people will ever see it, but I want to put like finger lines. And just a little, kind of like the Daffy Duck white, just so that's not a pure silhouette. And you can see that it's a hand gesturing. Okay, so relock the rendering layer, unlock the line art. I'm going to save really quick because I haven't saved since I started this, and that is an accident waiting to happen. While that is saving, I'll take another delicious sip of my Dr. Pepper Zero Sugar. This will make me burp again. Looks like we got some folks watching over on Facebook. Bill McRae, Sean M. Scott, Paul Henson. Anyone who is watching hasn't heard the spiel just yet. I am working on this new upcoming Finding D strip, a 6-panel strip that I am working on. And if anybody has any questions, just drop them in the messages in the chat. I can blow my nose. I can see the screen and will reply to any questions. And that gives me stuff to talk about so that we don't all go insane listening to me describe the same stuff over and over. Okay, so there's another one. Bigger, juicier brush for the thought. Oh, gotta make it black. Not too thick. My thought balloons are definitely something that I steal stylistically from Garfield a little bit. The overlapping loops is something that I picked up from Garfield. I like the juiciness of it. Juicy is a term I use regularly in inking. Let's see, what do we got? Speaking of which, what your favorite fizzy drink? Dr. Pepper Zero. I'm a diabetic, so zero. But Dr. Pepper has always been my favorite of any and all sodas and fizzy drinks. I am always in the mood for Dr. Pepper. I am never not in the mood for Dr. Pepper. I'm a pepper. Bring my pen tip down back again to 16. And this is a case where I didn't want to just copy paste the head. I could, but the expression changes so much and there's body language changes that happen with it. There's little things that I try to copy paste, do copy pasting as little as possible. Usually like 90% of the time I do it for backgrounds. I might copy paste this hatching up here at the bottom because that's just, it's not that big of a deal. But character stuff, especially when there's emotion happening, I like to view this very much like animation. And I don't want it to be static. I don't want it to feel like it's just, a cutout on the page. So even if it's something like this where my head didn't really move that much from panel to panel, I still prefer redrawing it. And then there's certain cases where the gag is actually, if there's a joke that, like Schultz would do this a lot with Peanuts, where there's a gag of timing that works really good most specifically when nothing moves from pan where it's almost identical because there's that tiny little, like, almost that Chuck Jones eyebrow that goes up. "Oh, Rich Dresden watching. I finally caught one." "Yes, you did. Welcome." They're random, I know. I'm not good at scheduling them. I just kind of like, "Oh, today I feel like doing it." This is an idea that I had for an ongoing storyline that just started today, which is the, injury to my arm from a couple years ago, this one. And the I realized this morning that the storyline was done. It was all loaded up. And I'm like, "Ooh, I kinda missed a hole here. There's some stuff that I didn't talk about that I need to cover." Um, so here we go. So this one will run on Patreon on Wednesday. So for those of you who are backers on my Patreon, um, this will be available to you this Wednesday. Otherwise, next Wednesday for everyone else. So my knee is skinned here, and I am not going to ink that here. What I'm going to do is that's going to be on the rendering layer, and you'll see why in just a few minutes. Aha. If you have any questions, Rich, don't hesitate to ask. I can see the screen, so I can answer any questions as they happen. Any questions or comments? Feel free. It makes the whole thing a lot more fun, and we have more to talk about. Otherwise, it's just me repeating the same stuff I've already said like 13 times. You'll notice Kid Me has like normal round ears. I don't that weird six shaped ear I don't draw on Kid Me. I don't really know why. There's no reason. Same ear. You'd think I'd draw them more consistently, but I don't know. I never particularly have had big ears, but they make the head look more kid friendly, I guess. I don't know. Let's see. Rich Dresden, your line work is sharp as tusks. Are you using vector brushes? If not, it's really freaking solid. Not a sign of pixels anywhere. I am not using vector brushes. I work. It's bitmap in Clip Studio. I I like to do things like liquefy and stuff that doesn't work as well with the vector brushes, and I don't like the overly clean. I need there to be a little bit of wiggle, a little bit of wobble. I don't there it's not a textured brush. It doesn't have any kind of like tooth to it. And like if you zoom in, you can see the pixels. But I'm working 600 DPI, so that it can print really well and not have too much of any kind of real have the ground have a little bit of a outsidey texture. Yeah, the brush I work with, there's this brush called Frendon's brush set, and there's a brush called Lando Calbrushian. I really, really like it. It's the closest digital brush I have seen to like that Jeff Smith brush line, which I covet. Um, and I love working with this thing. It's a really nice, really clean brush line. When I'm working on the desktop, because it's a little bit of a more awkward procedure, I do have line smoothing up a little bit more than normal. It's set to 10 right now. I try to keep it pretty low unless I'm doing like whenever I do like a Jim Davis Garfield parody, I will crank the line smoothing all the way up because, like, for example, like I'll just doodle it up here, but like if you're trying to do like a Garfield eye, that looks wobbly as heck, but you bring that stabilization all the way up and go slow. Aside from that little thing, much smoother. So whenever you see me doing like a Garfield parody, know that I have bumped the stabilization up incredibly because I am not messing around. The Friendin brushes are great. There's a few of them that I use all the time. Landell Calbrushian is definitely one of them. That hand is a little small, but I don't have to redraw it. Just select it and embiggen because it's supposed to be an adult pointing at me here. So needs to have a hand that looks significantly larger than the hands that you see there at the bottom. Let's see. A message popped up real quick. Okay, back into it. The index finger of shame, Rich Dresden says, yes. Get the tire in here. Definitely wrecked a bicycle in my day. And this is back in the era where, you get a scraped knee and just, here's the Bactine or the iodine, and we're going to burn you until it goes away, and you better not cry, which is part of the concept of this strip. But again, not going to give away all the punchlines yet or the script. Just talk about it lightly. Oh, see, I should have done. Oh, now you'll see why, because I should have done that on the rendering layer. Derp. So I'm gonna put this, lock it up, go to glasses, unlock my glasses. Young me doesn't have glasses because I didn't have them until I was in my late 20s or early 30s. Got diabetes. Give myself the little white highlight. Now I know with stuff like this, people are often like, "Oh, keep these under a half hour or whatever." I'm like, "I don't care. I'm doing this for fun and sharing as I work." So. See, Rich Dresden says, same. In fact, I got hit by a car while on a bicycle. Weirdly enough, I was on my way home from a comic book store, April 2nd, 1999, corner of Merrick Road and Ocean Avenue, Massapequa. I'm from Massapequa. Ah, small freaking world. I would go to, I'd get my comics when I was a kid. When I was a kid, it was early 80s in Massapequa, and we did not have like the nearest comic book shop was I think Collector's Comics over in like Hicksville. Um, but I'd go. There was a corner shop on Ontario Avenue um, called Te Amo. It was a tobacco shop, but they had a great spinner rack, and that is where I would bike because I lived down on Ontario, and I would just take my bike or walk up there. I'd get some comics, and if I had enough money, I'd grab a Yoo-hoo from the thing and yep, Massapequa, small effing world. Those little rendering on the couch or chair. Technically, I'm on the chair. I have my own chair. Heidi usually is on the couch. I've got the chair because I got all my crap. I got my books and art supplies and all that nonsense. Ha! Tamo is still there. I bought some Archie Sonics from there. I also got caught reading an 18 plus magazine there. They're not very kind about it. I know it's still there, but I will frequently go on to like Google Earth and kind of walk the neighborhood. I'll go to, I'll walk from I'll walk from my house to my school, stuff like that, and just freak out. Like the house I grew up in is 2 stories now, but I can see how they built the second story on what was a 1 story house, and I'm like, that looks so weird. But yeah, Te Amo was where I would go to get most of my comics. Wasn't until I think like 85 or 86 that we would start like my grandmother would take me down to the collector's comic store or there was a place at the flea market. And then for a little while, I remember at the Sunrise Mall had a kiosk in the center that had some comics and toys in it too, like a little standalone inside. Oh, there we go. That's texture on the bottom of the shoe. And that weird little texture thing I like to do for pans, which, oh, I forgot to do on the other panel. I don't remember exactly where I got this from. It might be like Paul Smith's Leave It from Chance, the horizontal rendering for pant light for like jeans. My God, yes, the Busy Bee Mall. Exactly. Oh my God. I'm having flashbacks. I haven't been there forever. I don't think I've been back to Massapequa since like 92, maybe. Oh my God. I am. I'm having freaking flashbacks now. This is wild. Stinky's comics. That one I don't remember, I'll admit. Not by name at least, but I know that I did get some books at I got some pretty cool books. That's where filled in a lot of the X-Men's I was missing, like the late like 199-ish era of those books. Now, the reason I did not do any rendering on this is that I'm going to take this and bring in a little red brush and just do some kind of scritchy, scritchy red on the knees. Oh, yep, that's right. In the first hardcover, I did the flat. Yes, I remember this conversation now. Raymond J. Lockhart Elementary School. A couple of additional, I'll put a little, it looks like I really took a good tumble. Okay, that's coming good. I'm going to lock this layer again. Line art unlock to black. Not impossible. It is a small, small world. My friend Sabrina Pandora, we met online when I was up here in Pennsylvania, and she's in Texas, and we discovered we lived for years in the same exact county in Florida at the same time. So, like, we lived a couple of miles from each other. A small, small, weird world sometimes. Okay, bring this back down. 15. Ah, a little too much. I always kind of do like nose, mouth, and then hair. It kind of sets everything else on the right trajectory design wise in the face. Not too pointy. Oh, I stopped talking entirely. This is why I need questions. Anyone got any more questions? So I have something to talk about. I can only remember so much about Massapequa. I don't think the movie theater that I used to go to until the mall is still there. I looked on the Google Earth, but I did not see the car dealership where the movie theater used to be. Ah, closed in '88. Yep, that'd be only a couple of years after I left, I think. think the last year I was there regularly was, I think, 86 or 87. I'm not sure. I moved to Yonkers shortly afterwards. You remember the Broadway coffee shop on Broadway and its owners, George and I do not. Didn't even start drinking coffee until very recently in my life. I remember the pizzeria on Broadway was pretty good. Um, but alas, no. Yeah, after grade school, just before junior high, family moved to Yonkers. So I did. I did junior high in Yonkers. Yeah, no, it's unfortunate, but true. Like again, I did my little Google Earth searching, and I'm like, oh, Sunrise Mall is a Simon Mall now. Looks like every other Simon Mall. That was where I went to go see my grandmother took me and dropped me off so I could go watch Transformers the movie in '86. Immediately ran to like the Sam Goody, I think, right afterwards, just so I could get the soundtrack because I was obsessed. I think it was the Sam Goody. I don't know. It's a record store. It was in the mall. Chances are it was the Sam Goody. It was the '80s. For this, I actually got to drop the stabilization if I want to do wobbly, which I do. Some things I prefer doing by hand rather than fonting. Save this real quick. Take an additional sip of my Dr. Pepper. Why that needed an awful accent, I do not know, but I'm weird. What's your experience? Let's see. The Tired Scott asks, "What's your experience with mouse drawing?" Uh, Awful. I suck at it. I have never been able to do so. Yeah, the people who can draw with a mouse have superpowers and skills I will never know. I cannot draw with a mouse to save my life. I That's something I tried, and as soon as I had a tablet, I saw no reason to try again. I know there's a lot of people who do it and who enjoy it. I am not one of those people. Messy pre-transition hair. Go in and add some. There we go. Table doesn't have to be cutting in. Joseph says, I don't think anyone's good at mouse drawing. I can do small repairs and drawing with it. I don't even bother. Like, I do anything I need to do artistically is being I use my tablet because it's right here. It's never like I've got to set it up separate or anything. This is a Wacom, an Intuos Wacom. So it's the super like it's like $89 or something. The super cheap version. Lock the line arts. Unlock the glasses. Yeah, it's like 4 by 5. It's about yay big. It's over here to the side. Nothing fancy. Unlock the rendering. When I was doing Dandy and Company back in the early 2000s, I had a Wacom, but I got to work on, and that thing was huge. It was like 20 inches across or something. It was massive, and frankly, because I have like very shaky hands, unless my hands are planted, it wa- it didn't help me. I need to be able to have my hand kind of locked down on the surface. Thank you. It says, wow, you're doing this on a 4 by 5 Intuos. Kudos. You are indeed a warrior woman. Rich resident. Thank you. I can't put the messages up on the screen if they're coming in from Facebook for some reason. They're not populating on the chat window in Restream. That might be a pro feature. I don't know. Let me take a look at this panel. Yeah, I'm actually going to sign it on this panel because that's the biggest space I have available. I used to have that whole "you can't sign it till you're done" thing, but I'm like, when I get to the spot where the signature will look best, and that's where I'm inking, I'm not gonna just leave a big gap and then do it at the end like I'm Bob Ross, for fuck's sake. Okay, rendering. I want the little bib to have a very specific bit of texture to it, so it really does look like one of those paper bibs. So I'm doing kind of a herringbone just to hopefully make it pop a little. And some braiding for the little rope, again, on the rendering layer, so this will not affect my ability to color it at all. I did the same thing, then I found something I needed to fix afterwards. I had a meltdown. Yeah. Yeah, that'll happen. So I'm gonna just kind of do mostly black for the little table, but since it's on the rendering layer, I actually have to re-outline the figure so I can fill it. There's not a lot of hard, solid blacks in this one. So on that note, actually, I'm going to go back to the line art, undo that, close it off. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to fill this whole table black because I want that to kind of frame my terror. And again, this particular strip does not have a lot of solid blacks, and I like to try to hit some good solid blacks in there when I can. They look nice. They draw the eye very well. Some sweat beads, a little bit of a plastic rendering on that awful thing they put in your cheeks to hold your mouth open sometimes. Frequently, I don't get the cheek thing because they just expect me to keep my mouth open indefinitely, like through willpower. And I'm like, I am panicking. I don't like this. But there's the general assumption, especially pre transition, which this is kind of riffing on, is that, you're huge, ergo, this is not going to be a problem for you. Like, no, no, it's very much going to be a problem. I hate this and I am in panic mode. Treat me like a baby, please. I am not good with this. Being 260 pounds and 6'2" does not somehow make me physically sturdier or more emotionally stable for handling horrifying pain in the tooth region. I don't know what planet you're on. Hello, Linda Michelle Lewis. Welcome to the video. Almost done with the inking here. I may not get the whole thing done tonight because we're closing in on 6 o'clock, but I'm going to shoot for it of getting all the colors done, do the whole strip in one sitting. It is not impossible. I've done it before. Just, of course, I always make these more complicated than they need to be because that's how I roll. I'll put some extra. They're going to be standard medical rubber gloves, but I want to kind of shadow them a little bit too to make them look more ominous. But again, because all of this is on the rendering layer, filling in the colors will be super, super easy. If anyone has any questions as we're approaching the end of the inks here, I only got a little bit over a panel to go, and that panel might have some cheating on it because I am not above cheating in order to get this thing done on time. Some nice bumpy, shaky lines for the burst lines here so that it looks all freaked out and weird. My panic has some more direction to it. Okay. Yeah, I don't ever go easy with these strips. You'd think that ever since I went color, I'd go even more like simple and straightforward. But no, no, in fact not. Okay, line art unlocked. I'm going to do a little bit of cheating, not a lot, because the art our poses change just enough for it to be problematic. So what I am going to do, however, to make my life a little easier, is copy, copy. Oh, there's nothing there, you doofus. I forgot that's on the rendering layer. Copy, paste. There we go. So the rendering, don't have to reinvent the wheel. Remerge these together. Lock the rendering, go back to the line art, and I'm sure this isn't going to get a lot of rewatches because people are going to be like, she was drawing for how long? Ugh, I got stuff to do. Speaking of which, if you were to reinvent the wheel, what shape would you make it? Well, I'm a Mythbusters fan, so I know that the wheel shape is the best shape. No reinventing the wheel for me. Maybe a spirograph spoke, although I always sucked at spirograph. So, again, very unsteady hands, which people look at me like, but you're an artist and you're good, and how can you have unsteady hands? Welcome to life. It's hard and confusing and weird. Little bit of a cheat there on my hair because I have the eyelid or the eyebrow going up over it. Let's see, people think artists draw perfect circles because iWorks did. Little did they realize there was only one of iWorks, and he's dead now. Yes, the rest of us use circle templates. Little first line here where Heidi's doing the knock knock on my head. I will hand letter my sound effects, but that's about it. I'm not a hand letterer. Every time I do it, there's always somebody going, "Oh my god, your hand lettering is great." And I'm just like, "No, no, it's not. I don't know what you're talking about. It's awful." Almost there. Gotta slow down a little bit. I'm kind of trying to run to the finish line. I'm gonna mess my lines up on the last panel. But I'm out tomorrow because I have a doctor's appointment in Pittsburgh, and it's a long drive. So I end up not getting anything done during days when I have a doctor's appointment. Um, and again, this strip is due on the Patreon on Wednesday. So I'm trying to get as much of it done today as possible so I don't have to worry about it. And if I can get it completely done, all the better. Okay, I gotta match the line weight because that first panel had the nice thick lines around me. So I can't quite skimp there. Let's see. Rich says, I had a much different experience. I wrote my own font, which I use sparingly now. When I was doing my weekly webcomic, a handful of people complained they couldn't read it. It wasn't that they couldn't read it, they didn't tap on the damn picture to magnify it. Yes. But also, my handwritten font started annoying the your favorite expletive here out of me because one letter was too thin, another wouldn't kern right, the special characters didn't map correctly, all sorts of things. Yeah, I've tried a couple of times making my own font. I used one in Dandy and Company for like about a year, like not even, maybe about 6 months. And it just, I look back on it and I'm like, what was I thinking? It's so awful looking. I still will occasionally use it for sound effects, like things like that. Knock knock. I will frequently use my personally made font for that. But it doesn't even look like when I try to, like if I'm doing a commission or something that has a word balloon on it, that looks completely different, the hand lettering, than when I tried to make my own font. So I don't know, maybe one of these days I just need to write it out on like, the quick brown fox kind of thing. Okay. Lock that layer, unlock glasses one last time. But for the most part, I'm satisfied with I got some nice ones from Blambot and I'm happy with them. And I have no desire to try and hand letter my own stuff, especially since I'm working digitally. I am not. I am not as good as Jay Fosgate. Rendering lines, rendering lines, rendering lines, rendering lines. What are they like? They're rendering lines, rendering lines. Can't think about Quick and Foxes without thinking of Tails. Yes, the quick, the the quick yellow fox flies a biplane. It doesn't quite have all the right letters. Flies a buzzy biplane. I don't know. Really have cleavage quite that nice, but I'm generous to myself in the cartoon. Yeah, Blambot. I've got a lot of great fonts that I use from Blambot. Um, they do fantastic work, and I'm not shy about utilizing it. Yeah, that means I see the font that I use in all kinds of other places, and I just don't care. It looks fine. It reads good. It looks kind of like what my it would look like if I spent more time. That was like the one class that I struggled at when I was at the Kubert school was the lettering. 'Cause that was back in the 90s. So it was hand lettering and ugh, sucked. Sucked, sucked, sucked. Okay, so rendering locked. Line art unlocked. Because now I need to kind of drop outlines around everything so I can fill the color easier. And since I see where the borders of the actual panel are going to go, it's a lot easier for me to just drop these lines in a smidge outside that. Okay, I'm going to turn off the sketch layer. I'm going to make a new layer for color, character flats. Now in here, you can push this little kind of, it looks like it's called the reference layer. It kind of looks like a lighthouse. You click that on click that for your line art, and then you go down here and you click that, go to it. Now I can drop, I can do a little, I can do the little selection, say hair, grab my paintbrush, which is designed to close in gaps behind the line art. And I can just drop the color in pretty quick. And this is why I render on a separate layer, because now that's what I'm filling, not that. And it makes it so, so much easier. Kid Me has different, slightly lighter hair. That is an adult. Let's see. Craig Boldman was posting about the late Archie mainstay Victor Gorlick and how he was a closeted letterer. Folks from the old bullpen would often watch over his shoulder until he glared at them not to. I haven't. I used to know Victor. My stepfather was a bartender, and Victor Gorlick was a regular who would come in after work because my stepfather worked near the Archie offices, Victor Gorlick would come in quite regularly, and a few times after talking about me, Victor would bring he would bring boxes of the comics that Archie would get from the other publishers, basically, to kind of like what everyone's working on. And I would get boxes of comics, a lot of Archie stuff in there, but tons of other stuff. And it really exposed me to a lot of other kind of comic art, thanks to Victor giving my stepdad these big old boxes of comics. So that's how I discovered like the Archie Ninja Turtles books, a lot of stuff. But also things like the epic comic version of Akira, Kyle Baker's Why I Hate Saturn. So many things I discovered that I didn't even know were, you know, ideas. Okay, actually, now there's another thing I do. I forgot. Select all. This is going to be slightly annoying to some people. I pick a neon color and I fill the entire background. Now, I do this because, like, see all these tiny little places where the colors showing through. I can see that so much easier to see when you're missing a color by filling in the background like that. Like, oh, that little spot between Heidi's glasses. I didn't see that. So much easier to see when you're missing the little spots. Oh, and a lot easier to see that I missed. That's going to kick my butt if I don't fill that. Aha. Back to the colors. I'm going to grab white and just do all the areas that have like teeth. I actually hand color the eyes near the end of the production. Did you notice I don't do holding lines for the whites of the eyes? That's just a thing with me. I like to do them manually, so they have a very specific look to them. Ah, what is that on the? Oh, I did that on the rendering layer. I'm the idiot. Okay, so I'm gonna have to hand do them. And what the little white drops here I did on the rendering layer, not the drawing layer. Oops. While I'm here and I'm doing this, I think I'll just go in and I'll hit the whites now. Since I have the white and the brush all selected, and I'm going to hit the little bit of white under the sweat beads in the close-up. Don't think I'll, might not have to do that in the distance shots, but we'll see. So yeah, I just kind of by hand will do the eyes. So I don't want them to have that like Hanna-Barbera animated look where the pupils are the same color as the skin. I hate that in cartoons, so I wasn't going to do it in my own comic. But I also didn't want to fully delineate the eyes. I liked the line art having those kind of open lined eyes. I'm going to do that manually too because those are tears. So anything that looks like it might be a pain in the butt to do. There we go. Old me. I really want to try to get as much of this done as possible. I still got about 20 minutes before I've got to pack up and go. So hopefully I can get to the like the toning layers so you can all see. It'd be nice if there's a process video that has literally everything all it saw. It would make me happy. Yeah, this one I'm gonna do the droplets as well. Since They're pretty big. Let's see. Okay. Oh, that should be eyelid. Eyelid. Anything that's a pain in the butt feels like less of a pain in the butt when one forms a plan of attack, usually through trial and mostly error. Yes, very much so, Rich. I just got a message from Heidi. Big, long, dragging pupil there. Or irises, pupil. Color part. Derp. Okay, back to the fill. Fill. Fill, 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 fill. Fill, fill, fill. Let's see, I'm going to go with kind of a pale blue, I think, for this. Gray for the drill bit. Just a blue for the dentist's hand and the glove. I'm going to go with a slightly greener blue for the bib. Little bit of a there. Let's see, I will be wearing a dark green shirt in the past. Got my gums. I actually have a set color for my gums, but I have a tendency to not use it and just eyeball a pinkish color. And a little bit lighter for my tongue, which tongues pop up. So tongue, tongue, tongue. Oh, no tongue. No tongue, but I missed the teeth in a few of these. I'm going to have to go back. Curses, curses. Teeth, teeth, teeth. Laces, 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 laces. Sock, sock, sock. Da, da, da. Laces, sock, sock, sock. Laces, laces, laces. Teeth. Aha! That is mostly filled in. Okay, we're getting to the stock colors. Yellow for the knock knock. Fingers in here. Oh, I messed up that one. Okay. Line art. There's a connecting line here, and the back of my chair is now made of flesh. Oops. So let me go back to my thingy. I got my purple. I will be wearing my standard purple shirt. Doot, 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 doot. Doot, doot, doot. Doot, doot, doot. Doot, doot, doot. Doot, doot. Okay, Heidi usually has these dark, I give her a very dark blue shirt. She usually wears a lot of black shirts, but that doesn't look quite as good on the page, so the dark blue tends to work nicely. Her hair actually hasn't been pink for a little while now, but I like the cartoon character to just kind of stay static. Oh man, I messed up a couple lines here, didn't I? Forgot to put the other side of the chair. Okay. Chair, I think I'm going to go with kind of a grayish green. I change this up constantly in the strip. There's no rhyme or reason to the color of the chair. I don't care much about whether or not it's the same all the time. Interrupting cow. Interrupting cow. Moo. Stupidest joke ever, and I love it. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to make sure that the little go back to white for a second and fill in that, 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 and that. It's scrunchy. And the pillow under my arm will be a burgundy because that's actually what I use. Usually a burgundy pillow. My hair, I'm going to start with my base current color but go blonder to represent youth. When, as we age, our hair gets darker, generally speaking. Fill that in. It's a pretty big hole. So anyone who's a fan of Dandy and Company will recognize this as Bernard's shirt, or the realistic version, which was in fact based on a real shirt that I had. It was, however, red and white, not red and yellow. Otherwise, pretty much the same thing. And yep, see, I did that little texturing in there, and look what a pain in the butt it is. Cases like this, sometimes I'll just go in and manually touch it up. Don't want the bicycle to attract too much attention, so I'm just going to kind of give it a neutral blue so it falls into the background a little bit. Rich says, I'm excited for whenever I get my rewards from your Kickstarter. I think I chose the thing that gets me a copy of your first hardcover and that I'm donating to help. Oh, help build a library for local trans center. That's awesome. Thank you. That is great. I love that. That makes my day. 618. Oh, oh, that's the bag, not that. There is no way this is getting done today, unfortunately. I was hoping, but as we get closer and closer to the end of the day, I can definitely tell I am not going to complete this in the allotted time. But getting close. Getting very, very close. There, that's a good bag color. Let's see, you don't have to work around all that stuff. Milk, 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 milk. Just kind of randomly grabbing colors for these things because I don't really care what they're colored. They're just things. I am very glad that you were able to get to watch it, and I will try to get to doing more of these whenever I can get around to remembering that they exist and that I should do them more often. Well, lift with your legs. And the strip will be running on Patreon on Wednesday, and hopefully you will all enjoy it. I am going to be getting ready to wrap this up in a few, however. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get the flats done at least. So for that, I need to select everything that is not me, not character art. Hopefully I can get at least finish these lines or finish the flats so that you can see how that's all going to suss out. Go pick Heidi up. Select, expand by 2 pixels, invert. Now below the color layer, I am going to fill with a black mask. Perfect. That filled in all those tiny little dots. Haha. And one more thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my the thought balloons. Make a mask. Select, expand by 2, fill. Now I can turn that off. Unlock that, bring that back up to full. And then just start doing some little fun selecting here. I'm going to make these and these a different background color, I think. Let's see. I generally tend to do like something with a yellow, admittedly. That'll work. And then for the flashback panels, maybe a blue, like a pale teal, maybe. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, so this is just the flats. I have got to get going, however, so I will not be able to do all the full rendering and all that fun jazz. But thank you everyone who enjoyed watching this, and the finished strip shall be up shortly. Um, have a great time. Thank you again for everyone who watched.